Okay, so in this instance we have an example of someone ceasing to be a VAT vendor. In this instance, that someone is XZ Ltd. who ceases to be a vendor. So in terms of the application of someone ceasing to be a vendor, is that SARS wants back the input VAT that would have had to be claimed by the vendor prior to him having ceased to be a vendor. So they want output VAT to be processed at the lower of cost or open market value. They want you to recognize output VAT at either lower of cost or open market value. And the lower of cost must be inclusive of VAT. So that means if you have a cost which you have to take into account for your calculation, you must basically gross it up by 1.15 in order to make up for the VAT amount. Because open market value is assumed to include VAT. So in this example, we'll look through to see if there are any such situations that would have given rise to output VAT having to be recognized. So XZ Ltd had the following items within his company before ceasing to be a vendor. They had a bus which was used to transport his employees working night shift. So in this instance, the cost of the bus is 250,000 rands and the open market value is 200,000 rands, basically. So what do we know about a bus? A bus is not a motor car as defined, so it would have claimed input VAT in that situation. They would have claimed input VAT because it's not a motor car as defined. However, if this was a bus that was used to transport fare-paying passengers, as in the provision of fare-paying passengers either using road or rail as a means of transportation so far as transport is concerned, then that would have made that supply an exempt supply, because fare-paying passengers, the road or rail, it's an exempt supply, something that we forgot to mention in our exempt supply category. In that instance, that bus would not have been recognized. Whereas, if there are no fare-paying passengers, the owner has actually basically bought a bus. He has a driver that he basically has employed with the sole intention of being the guy who drives the bus, and like everyone else that gets paid within the company, when payroll comes through, the driver also gets paid like all the other employees. In that instance, the bus is not an exempt supply and it would have recognized input VAT having been claimed as a result, because it does not fall into the category of it being an exempt supply. So the lower of 250,000 or 200, which is the open market value, which value would we use? In that instance, we'd use the 200 for our calculation because VAT would have been claimed. Now, we also have a computer which was used to record transactions of the company. So the computer in this instance, the cost that we have is 115,000 rands versus 150 open market value. The question we ask again is, would the computer have been a vettable transaction when it was purchased originally for the business use? And indeed, it would have been a taxable supply, so they would have claimed VAT. So that means we have to basically choose lower of the two. In this instance, cost is the lower of the two, so we'll take that into our consideration when working out the output payable. And the next one is inventory of water containers sold to beverage companies. So would input VAT have been claimed for inventory? In this situation, indeed, the material to make the containers would have likely attracted input VAT that would have been claimed by the company. So then we definitely would have to account for the output VAT in terms of what is due to SARS. So what is the lower of the two between 200,000 and 220,000? We go for the 200,000, which is the lower of the two. In terms of a motor car, which was used by his CEO, would input VAT have been claimed in that situation? No, a motor car would have been a denied supply. So in that instance, we would not have to recognize either one of that situation. Then we also have debtors. With debtors have basically been recognized. Let's call this 800,000 and call the other side 500,000. So with debtors have been debtors have claimed VAT, input VAT in this instance. In terms of debtors, when we had debtors, remember, we would have recognized debtors. So no, for debtors, we would not have claimed input VAT because debtors would have been an output VAT situation. We would have recognized output VAT. So there would have not been any VAT implications that we consider for input because SARS is only looking for input that would have been claimed. So debtors, no, we do not have to account for this one. So basically that's where we are in taking in our calculation. So now we have to take our calculation into account. So the first part is 200,000. Let's use a different color in terms of our calc now. We're going to say 200,000 for the bus. You take that in. So market value is assumed to be inclusive of VAT. And the next one that we will take in, we will take the 115,000, which we will have to cross by 1.5. So we'll go 1.15 because it's a cost, and the cost has to be crossed up. So 115 times 1.15 would basically give us, okay, let's just 115,000 times 1.15 times 115,000 would give us 152,000. Guys, excuse me for that. That's 115,000 times 1.15, which gives us 132,250. Okay. The next one would be 200,000 times 1.15, which would give us 1.15 times 200,000, which gives us 230,000. And these are all the amounts that we have to consider, so we don't have to look at any other amounts. So then have to add them all up together to get a total amount, because they've now been crossed up. 230,000 plus 132,250 plus 200,000, and we get a total amount of 562,250, which we multiply by the tax fraction of 15 over 115, because everything is assumed to now be inclusive of that, which will give us, so let's just go on and do this and say 15 divided by 115, get that, times 562,250, which gives us 73,336 output VAT payable. So 73,337 payable over as output VAT payable to SARS. So that's the situation that we will likely have to deal with here. So that amount would now deemed to have accrued to ceasing to be a vendor, and it will have to now be paid over to SARS, and that's what we need to be very aware of when you are ceasing to be a vendor in this instance.